Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. This is our follow-up to AMD stock reaction that I made a couple of days ago. We can see that most of the bigger YouTubers are starting to change their tune when it comes to AMD. Joseph Najaro stocks, he say that AMD stock is a steal. I completely agree. We can see that I think there was another big investor there, Financial Education. Also, like I watched his video. I've been following him since 2017 or so. Really also like this video. I myself have been doing videos also quite a while now about AMD, especially in the last month, 1 month ago, talking about that I think it's undervalued. Again, 2 weeks ago, and then 3 days ago. Why do I say that? I think everything comes down to these so-called AI GPUs, right? Because that's what people use. If we go to AMD, we can see that my expectation for next year is just below 40 billion US dollar in revenue. And I think some people will, raise their eyebrows now and say, how is that possible that they are going to go from around 22 to 25 billion from 2023 and 2024 to almost 40 billion? Now, granted that this could possibly be a little bit too optimistic, but I think 35 billion is like 90% sure. You can see that the reason why AMD is going to have those kind of huge revenues next year, 22 billion of that will come from data center. And again, you're gonna raise your eyebrows. How is that possible that almost this year's entire revenue will be just only for one segment, data center, next year? I've been mentioning this, that AMD is around 9 to 12 months behind Nvidia, and this is what we are starting to see. Look at their data center revenue quarter over quarter, right? If you go from, like, I don't know, the start of Q4 of last year, 2023, since MI300 was introduced, 42%, 2.4%, 21%, 25%. A little bit of a slowdown potentially in Q4, still a healthy 10%. Then again, hitting the gas pedal again, 24%, and then maybe continuing on like 10% quarter over quarter for the end of all of the up and coming quarters for next year. Reason I do say that is their lineup. Their technical lineup next year is gonna be really strong. If we go to this other sheet here, you can see that AMD by early next year is gonna fight with MI325X, which is a variant of MI300 with higher memory capacity. Originally, it was planned to have 288 gigabytes of HBM3E. Now I think it's 256 gigabytes, and it's gonna be a beast for inferencing. To be honest, I think this thing is gonna be an absolute beast for inferencing. And if OpenAI and Meta and Microsoft are talking about the MI300 being good, I think for inferencing this thing is gonna be even better. Although I have to be honest that when it comes to training, it's not gonna be that strong compared to Nvidia's lineup. So training is still a Nvidia, kind of fortress, but that's gonna change by end of next year. So in the second half of next year, MI350X will come in with a newer kind of, let's say, instruction set, which they also will be able to do matrix operations at FP8 and FP4, and they're gonna do it equally as good as Nvidia. And knowing AMD, knowing that they're gonna have lower average sales price than Nvidia, I just don't see how these guys are not gonna take market share. Not in terms of just some people, for example, Jose Najaro, I watched his video. I think his conclusion was that they're gonna take revenue next year, higher revenue next year, but I think they're gonna take higher revenue and market share, simply due to, especially when it comes to units market share. It might be that in terms of revenue market share, because remember it's different. Revenue market share, Nvidia is difficult to topple because they have such a high price. But in terms of actual numbers shipped, I think AMD is gonna take market share next year. And that's very important because it means that more and more people are getting exposed to AMD hardware in the inferencing and in AI large language model training. That's gonna definitely make sure that more and more people in all these big companies are gonna be aware and seeing that the red AMD sticker there. So that's gonna be great for AMD. And looking at some of the other aspects, you can see I'm still thinking that AMD's other lineup, EPIC CPUs, is also going to be strong next year. Obviously, it's not going to be as strong as the Instinct, so the AI GPU part. But if you look at where we are right now, we are probably at just below 2 billion right now. Remember that AMD doesn't give out these numbers. These are estimations. but I think that, yeah, we are just below 2 billion right now, and it's gonna, go to maybe 2.8, 2.3, maybe even 2.5, maybe if you're lucky 3 billion next year. Why do I say that the Epic revenue is gonna be high next year? The first step is that they're gonna take market share from Intel, as they always been doing over the past 6 years. Intel is still struggling. They are doing some good stuff, but they are still struggling. So they're gonna take market share there. But additionally, it's gonna be, I think, a really great year for CPU based servers. All the money in the past 2 years has been going to GPUs, but now all these big server parks are sitting on older generation of CPUs, which are 2, 3, 4 generation old. So they are getting a little bit long in a lifetime. Usually you should probably by latest 4 or 5 years change them. So I think it's a super cycle of CPU data center sales that's gonna come AMD's way as well. Not as explosive as AI GPUs, but it's gonna be a nice cycle for AMD. And we know that their Epic lineup is the absolute best. I would say that they have actually larger distance to the second player there, which is Intel, than Nvidia has between them and AMD in the AI GPUs. So for sure Epic will be great next year, which means that the data center revenue is gonna be, I would be very sure that they're gonna be at least 50% higher than last year, which is puts us at 18 billion or so. But honestly, I think we can see 20 billion plus, maybe even 23 or 24 billion next year. So if you add all this together, what are we gonna see next year? Well, we can see, if you go to my expectations for Q3 and Q4 of next year, let's zoom in a little bit so you can see. Q3 will have a revenue of 10 billion and Q4 around 11.5 billion. Most of it coming from data center. There you see 5.9 in Q3 and 6.6 in Q4. Client will be good. This is the laptop CPUs and APUs. We know that they are extremely well positioned in the market to take market share even in laptop area. They are introducing new chips that's gonna for sure take market share. That is essentially low-hanging fruit. Gaming is gonna be much better next year compared to the previous year, which is this year. And why do I say that? Because, well, gaming has been really bad for AMD. It's been a multi-year, probably half of decade low point for gaming 2024. So that's gonna for sure be better next year, especially since they are launching new GPU lineup for the gamers as well. And embedded is gonna also be better because 2024 has been a kind of low point also. So when you add all this together, there's this is all leading to a point where, because AMD is a very lean kind of company, operating expenses is traditionally not going up insanely. We are talking a few percentage every quarter, despite the revenue sometimes going up 12-15%. So if there's examples where AMD, for example, let's go here, so a recent quarter, let's pick, I don't know, let's pick this one, Q2 of 2024, revenue increased by 6% and the operating expenses by 2.68. Previous quarter, Q3, revenue increased by almost 17% and the operating expenses by around 4%. So this is a very lean company. A lot of this is going to end up on the gross profit and the margins, and we're gonna probably see a really nice EPS. And how do I arrive at that conclusion? Well, you can see here AMD will have probably a earnings per share next year, which is gonna sit at around, let's say, yeah, here, sorry, I was on 2024. If you look here, this is the numbers for 2025. My numbers are projecting around $2 or so earnings per share for Q4 of next year. I think that's doable. And remember, again, you are buying a stock that is currently sitting at around $130. And in a single quarter next year, it's very possible that they're gonna have a earnings per share at least at $1.5, and that run rate is anywhere between $6 to $8 of run rate of revenue from starting from second half of next year, which is essentially 6 months away from now. So I think, like, when Wall Street wakes up to this, when they start to see, when Lisa Su gives the guidance for Q3 at the Q2 quarter of 2025, and when we start to see MI350X entering the market, this thing is gonna just go on a roll, because there's nothing to say that 2026 will also not see at least a little bit maybe slower but still substantial growth. For all we know, AMD could easily do average 12, 13, 14 billion revenue for 2026, which puts them at almost 60 billion revenue for 2026, and probably north of 10 to maybe 12 US dollar earnings per share. So I think this company, if the AI kind of bull cycle continues at this rate, this could easily be a 3, 4, 500 US dollar stock. Why do I say that? Well, remember in 2026, I will update my models now to include 2026, but if they get anywhere close to, let's say, 15 or 12 US dollar of earnings per share, you are buying the stock essentially close to 10 PE ratio. And at that higher growth, I think this is easily warranted of 50 or 60 PE ratio. You take 50 to 60 PE ratio times, I don't know, like 10, that's 700 US dollar stock price. You take times, 15 EPS, that's probably almost 1,000 US dollar. Do I think AMD is gonna go to 1,000? Not at all. I think that's a little bit too optimistic. But is it possible to go from here to 400? I wouldn't be surprised in late 2026. So I like it very much at these prices. But again, everything changes with the reality out there. If we go out there and see, okay, this AI bull market is completely dying off, obviously we have to reconsider. But the good thing there is, at least for AMD, that even if AI kind of doesn't grow that much, if you look at the numbers I just shared with you, let's have a quick look again on what the numbers would look like if we exclude the insane growth of the AI GPU. So if you look at AMD's revenue excluding like insane growth on the AI GPU segment, and remember the data center consists of CPUs and GPUs, even if you, let's say, remove 50% of their AI GPUs, that means that in, for example, Q4 of next year, instead of 4.2 billion, we expect to see them closer to 2 or 2.5 billion. That would put away around 5 to 6 billion away from this number there, which means that if you subtract, I don't know, like let's say 6 billion from the total revenue next year, we're still gonna get, close to 30 billion. So that is still a growth scenario. But if the AI kind of GPU market completely collapses in, I don't know, 18 months, just think about how that would affect a company like Nvidia, which is essentially getting 90% of revenues from AI GPUs. So I think the risk-reward ratio for AMD right now is insane. And I do think there's, adding all of this together, there's one final point that, as I've been saying lately, no one in the market wants to have a situation where everyone is depending on Nvidia. And since AMD is offering technically equally as good solutions, almost essentially the same solution, I think most companies will see the value in this, and we're gonna see them take somewhat of a market share. So yeah, that's my point of view for AMD still. Please like and subscribe and comment in the comment section if you think the risk reward is very good here, and yeah, see you in the next one.